The Minister for Indigenous Australians, Linda Burney, has used a major speech to claim critics of the voice to Parliament are deploying American-style Trump-like politics to undermine the Yes campaign. Ms Burney's comments follow new polling that shows support for the Yes vote has dipped just below 50% for the first time. Joining us live now is Craig Foster, advocate for The Voice and co-chair of the Australian Republican Movement. Craig, good to see you. Appreciate your time. I know the Republican movement's essentially biding its time, I guess, until after the Voice referendum has happened. In the meantime, you've been out there publicly advocating for a Yes vote for The Voice. Are you worried that the Yes campaign's losing momentum?
Well, I think it's got a big challenge in the few months ahead. I must say, I'm personally a very strong supporter of reconciliation, firstly, which I also think is a really important element. So do the vast majority of Australians of a future republic, and of the future that we all aspire to. But also the Uluru Statement, and then personally, I'm a supporter of The Voice. So the ARM itself doesn't as yet have an official position. We're encouraging all of our members to make up their own minds, to make sure that they read all of the factual information that's out there. And we do have a First Nations Council, which is chaired by the brilliant, legendary Nova Peris, OAM, who's my co-chair, and we expect that they'll have a position on that sometime soon. But you're asking me on a personal basis, what I think about it. I think there's still quite a long way to go here. I have been really concerned and speaking in a whole range of community fora, whether here in Sydney or indeed up in the New South Wales North Coast or in Queensland and Ipswich just last week, and listening to people and hearing their concerns. And I think that's perhaps the biggest challenge that we've had in recent months, aside from the misinformation and and the untruths and the non-facts that are out there, is just giving everyone an opportunity to voice the concerns that they have, and being able to then have that conversation, and keeping the dialogue open has been a real challenge when the polarity of these type of situations tends to dictate where we get to.
The New South Wales Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg, who backs the concept of a voice to Parliament, he's been warning today that soft yeses are turning to hard no's, and he's saying that's because the Labor government hasn't compromised on the wording surrounding the reference to executive government. Do you see that as a mistake? Could this be a lesson for you and the Republican movement to take on board as you do look towards a referendum on that issue?
Well, of course, we're watching very, very closely, just running through a process now for our own campaign next year in 2024, which we're really excited about. And that, as much as anything, will be doing what I was talking about, a bit of, deliberative democracy, going around Australia. We're very excited about, town halls all around the country and talking to people about how they feel about what the Republic means to them, what the values are that underpin the Republic. And of course, then, what the practical manifestation of that is for an Australian to represent us here and all around the world. So I think the biggest challenge that I can see at the moment is, in relation to The Voice, is that, some of the diversions, if you like, and some of the issues around, detail and other issues have started to kind of embed themselves in the national psyche. And now all of us need to work extremely hard. And by us, I mean an Australian, who feels strongly about reconciliation, who believes that we need to come together, who believes that this is a unifying moment for the country, and that we need to continue to have those conversations as much as possible in our communities. And in fact, I also think, actually, that we all have to take responsibility for this. This is one of the most important moments in the history of Australia. Of course, as co-chair of the Republic, I think that we have another really important and inspiring moment coming in a few years' time. But nevertheless, we all have to carry some of this load. And that means ensuring that we are fully updated with the information, that we know exactly what this is about and what it's not. And I commend to all of your viewers to perhaps get hold of the recent book from Thomas Mayo and Kerry, Voice to Parliament handbook. It's a really excellent, succinct, compact read for all of us to ensure that we're fully across, what The Voice is, and more importantly, I would say at the moment, exactly what it isn't.
We've had the King's birthday honour list out. We all enjoy the public holiday in the King's name. Yeah. What would an Australian Republic mean for things like that, the honours list, our public holidays? And in the meantime, before we get to that vote, would you like to see Australians who don't support the monarchy be given an option to take a holiday from work on another day, like we're starting to see a lot of companies offering their employees on Australia Day, for example?
Yeah, so what was interesting about, what is called the King's birthday public holidays, first, it's not his birthday, that's not until November. And the other thing is that there was only 3 states and 2 territories that actually observe this day. The rest don't. So it's not a unified position across the country. Now, like you, I love my public holidays. No one's taking them away from me. So the only question for us as Republicans is, what does that mean going forward? How can we use this day to celebrate our own contributors to our history, our own contributors to our society, our own legendary Australians, or some of the democratic principles and moments that we're so very, very proud of? For example, we talked only a couple of days ago about potentially, the enfranchisement of women, which started down in South Australia, and then, of course, Edith Cowan across in WA, for example, because, to us, the future of Australia is all about an absolute and a stronger commitment to democracy. When it comes to the honours list, well, we think that Australians we should be honouring each other. And many people are conflicted, including me, actually, because obviously, I have an AM as well, as it's called. And I was very conflicted as to whether I should accept that or otherwise. But my ultimate view was that all Australians have a right to be nominated by other Australians and to be commended by all of the other 26 million Australians. But it should be just between us. This is an important part of our history, but going forward, no one should need to be conflicted. And in this path of reconciliation, there's a lot of people who don't feel that it's right to be accepting something on behalf of the Crown or the monarchy, and they shouldn't have to. Of course, we should be lifting Australians up and saying what incredible work is done. And we're so delighted. I was totally thrilled to see on Monday that more women than men, I think for the first time ever, were acknowledged. And that was absolutely beautiful. But you know what? I think all of us just want to be acknowledged by other Australians and say, thank you for what you've done for our country, for this soil, for this continent. And that's what we believe in going forward for the country.
Craig Foster, great to have you on. Appreciate you making the time. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.